Welcome to Legal Keys, unlocking time, revenue, and results. The podcast that connects you with the people, technologies, and trending topics shaping the modern legal landscape. From cutting-edge AI innovations to high-growth marketing strategies and everything in between. Legal Keys is your go-to resource for actionable insights. Brought to you by Faster Outcomes and hosted by Tim Sawyer, two-time Inc. 500 co-founder entrepreneur. We're here to help you navigate the tools and trends driving success in today's legal world.
Hello, welcome to Legal Keys. For those of you joining us for the first time, welcome. We're grateful for you spending time with us today. For those of you who have been with us before, welcome back. We've got an amazing episode teed up today. First, just want to mention our sponsor, Faster Outcomes. Faster Outcomes is the ultimate legal intelligence AI-powered platform for lawyers and law firms of all shapes and sizes. Super pumped about my guest today. Many of you probably know him already. He's a prolific podcaster. And what I'd like to do, great to see you, Steve, first of all.
Yep, great to see you, Tim.
I want to go over your bio because this is pretty impressive. And like I said, my instincts tell me many of the people who are going to see this probably know you already, but for those who don't, Steve Fretzin is top lawyer, business development coach, columnist, and podcast contributor for Above the Law. Four-time author, Steve is a premier coach, skills trainer, and peer advisory facilitator specializing in business development for attorneys. Want to talk about that for sure. For over 17 years, he has helped lawyers master the art of business growth, enabling them to achieve their goals, build successful practices. In addition to authoring 4 books on legal marketing and business development, Steve hosts the highly rated podcast, Be That Lawyer, which I love, as he knows, and contributes monthly columns to Above the Law and Attorney at Law magazine. His expertise is widely recognized in the legal community. The time that I have spent with him, I absolutely believe every word of this bio and appreciate and grateful to have him with us today. Steve, welcome to Legal Keys. Grateful. And so let's start with this. For a guy who's not a lawyer, you spend a lot of time with lawyers. Tell us how that happened.
Well, I got grilled by my lawyer father for so many years that I thought I had to get back into it. So that's how I got, that's the fun side of it. No, I never thought in a million years as a non-lawyer that I would end up working with lawyers. I really thought sales teams and entrepreneurs and helping them develop sales-free methodologies to grow business without feeling that ickiness that happens in sales was, it was going great. Like I didn't need to change anything. But in 2008 and 9, when the recession hit, it hit law and lawyers very, very hard. So general counsels got fired, lawyers who had been relying on their partners for billable hours, that got cut. They got, fired. They had to find another job. They had to go out on their own. And I just started getting sort of a swarm of lawyers being referred to me as as the sales-free selling lawyer or coach. And then I thought about it. I'm sitting here talking to them about specialization and how important it is. And I hadn't really pulled the trigger myself. So I said, about 16 months in, you know what? I think I'm going to start really focusing on the legal community. And there's an area where I can, really leave a mark. I can help an industry that is beloved and noble and some of the smartest, nicest people in the world. Maybe make my father proud of me, which he was very, I actually interviewed him on my 200th episode, which is one of my favorite episodes I ever did. And I never looked back. I mean, it's evolved because I started off in Chicago and I could throw a rock on LaSalle Street and hit a lawyer. Yep. And I tried that a few times, by the way. And then there we go. And then when the pandemic hit, everything moved to Zoom. And then I was like, well, let's blow this out nationally, blew it out nationally. And now I've got lawyers all over the country and internationally in Israel, Brazil, Saudi Arabia, and Canada. So, I mean, I'm really feeling around for the most ambitious lawyers that care about growth, that are interested in breaking out of the norms and really, doing things in a way that are highly efficient and maybe even have a little fun along the way.
So if I was a lawyer, if I interviewed 5 lawyers about Steve, and I'm going to ask this question 2 ways. This is the first one. And I said, well, what attracts you to Steve? Why do you think lawyers gravitate towards you?
Probably my boyish good looks and charm. But other than those two things, no. It's, I think it's my depth of knowledge as a non-lawyer in their space. I don't care if you're a personal injury attorney or you're a big firm, M&A deal guy. It's I have a depth of knowledge because I've spent so much time in the trenches with attorneys at every level in every practice area. That's part of it. I would say even more than that, it sometimes feels like I care about them and their practice more than they do. It might irritate some people, but when I truly feel like when I work with a lawyer and coach them and train them, that I'm their partner. Now, I'm not getting a cut of the business, and legally I'm not allowed to in many states, but ultimately I feel like a partner, and I want them to feel like they've got me on their shoulder, just sitting there with them in meetings, sitting with them, speaking into their ear. Hey, maybe you should send out 5 emails because you need to get some additional business in the door. Yeah. And I feel like I'm just there for them. And that's why I only take on around 20 lawyers a year. I'm not interested in hundreds and hundreds. And I used to work with just to give you a little background too, Tim, I used to work with law firms that would give me 10 and 15 and 20 lawyers. And I never felt right about it because there's going to be 10% of that group that's going to be highly engaged and motivated and ambitious. And there's going to be some that just show up and say, this was great. And there's going to be a bunch of others that are just wondering, how do I get back to my desk? How do I slink out of this room on this content and stuff I don't want to learn from this guy who scares the hell out of me and just, get back to my desk so I can crank out billable hours. So I found that working with individual lawyers where they have skin in the game has been one of the best moves I've ever made in my career, because everyone I work with is like a partner.
And you kind of answered the second question, which is, and if I asked 5 different lawyers, what drives you nuts? What's that guy do that drives you nuts? What would they say?
Oh my God. Maybe it's the special boots that I wear on occasion when they're not doing what they're supposed to do, and I know you can imagine exactly where I place that boot. Yeah. But many of them, look, I don't want to micromanage and I don't want to have to babysit anybody, but there are people that need a little bit of hand holding up front, or they need a little bit of motivation, and they need, there's a mind game going on for lawyers and for anyone in business. There's a mind game, we call it head trash. Yep. And I have to sometimes become a therapist. And I think sometimes they don't like the idea that they're sitting in therapy with me. And I'm, by the way, not a trained therapist. Yep. But again, you start to see and hear things that are repetitious, and you kind of know how to handle them. And there isn't much happening in my world that I have no clue how to answer that question or how to help you with that, because I've just been around the block so many times.
Interesting. So as a business, because what stands out to me is business development for attorneys. That can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. One of the things that I'm discovering, and really curious to hear your take on this, is attitudinally, it seems like there's some group of lawyers that really down with business development. I get it. And then you have a different group that are like, well, I'm a lawyer, not business development. How do you handle that when the person goes, well, if you think I'm going to, they don't want to do that, right?
Keep in mind, you've got people that are introverts, you got people that are extroverts, you've got people who signed up to be lawyers to practice the law, not to do business development and marketing and branding. And they abhor the idea of it because it's not why they got into it. And unfortunately, the reality of the world is that if you don't have your own clients, you really don't have independence, freedom, and control that the rainmakers have. And you can slink through your entire career under the radar and bill hours and be a great lawyer, and maybe it works out fine, right? The cheese doesn't run out if we go back to move my cheese. Yeah. But in most cases, and if the recession of 2008 and 9 and what's happening now in the world teaches us anything, is that things are changing. And if you don't have your legal knowledge and your own client base and relationships to take with you if the crap hits the fan, that's on you. That's on you. So I have to get lawyers at a certain inflection point where they're working to make equity, or they're doing $5 million a year, but you know what? They're at a point where they're like, why the hell am I not doing 10? This is crazy. I should be doing 10. Or I need to get to my first couple $100,000 because I can't pay the bills. So it's not the starving attorney that's hiring me. In many cases, they're successful attorneys but they're just like, how do I supercharge this? Or what don't I know? And one of the most beautiful things, Tim, and you do this in business, I'm sure, is meet with people, identify their gaps, and identify where, if they filled those gaps, could be so much more powerful. And in some cases, those gaps mean they should work with me. And sometimes I find that those gaps are, you should not work with me. You need marketing, or you need to start a podcast, or you need something else, or this is a quick fix. I'll just give you a half an hour. You don't need to be in my program for a year. Here's what you need to do. And I'll just give them the answer, to be a friend. So I think if a lawyer isn't motivated, it's not that there's no hope, but they're not going to engage me. I can tell you that.
And what I loved, like I said, I just had been talking with people all day. I just came back from a 10-day trip, attended a couple conferences. I really was impressed by the folks who were seemingly the most successful, were the ones who were most receptive to help. And then I've heard of mastermind groups. I'm not a lawyer, so I've never been part of one. But I was really impressed by how they were proud that they were part of mastermind groups, and how they open their cloak and show all their dirty laundry. And that's how they learn. So, and you're a mastermind group guy, right?
I am.
So what are some of the things, when does a person say, I'm ready I need to join a mastermind group? How do you get them excited and keep them going? And then the other part of it is, can you share with us, what are some of the hot topics for those folks who aren't part of mastermind groups? What are some of the hot topics that you're hearing and dealing with right now?
Yeah. So a lot of the people that join my masterminds are the people who are my clients, right? So they don't want to end with coaching and training. Like, I get them to another level, and then it's like, all right, where do they go? They've learned everything from me already. What else can they learn? Well, let's go to a group of other rainmakers and managing partners and law firm leaders from all over the country, all over the world, and let's learn from them. And let's continue in a confidential environment to share ideas, to solve problems. And you have to be a little vulnerable. You have to be honest. You have to know that, look, we're keeping this, in Vegas, if you will, right? This is what stays in Vegas, happens in Vegas, that type of thing. And I run a very robust, fun, energetic group. So they know, like, some of them say, like, this is the meeting that I look forward to each month, right? It's 90 minutes a month, but they look forward to it because they know in 90 minutes, they're going to get engaged on topics they're just not getting at their firm. It's their family away from their firm. It's their family away from their actual family. And they really care for each other, and they network together. They give each other business. They share ideas. I even have them meeting outside of my group in their own mini groups called accountability buddy groups that we set up, because some of them get so wrapped up in the management of the firm or in other administrative things that I try to talk them down from, right? Like you would, right? Do what you're, do the best use of your time, that they have a hard time putting business development at the top of their list. And so meeting weekly with a group of lawyers to say, hey, this is what I'm going to do for the next 20 minutes. They all hit mute, they go do it, and they come back and they say what they did. So this way it's a given that, that piece of the business is going to continue, because my Rainmaker roundtables, Tim, it's not about everything. I don't want to cover, I do sometimes have to cover everything, but it's really about growth, that growth and hitting, everyone's got their own personal goals. They might be growing a firm, but they're the rainmaker at the firm. And so it's really like, how do I go from 2 million to 3 million or 5 million to 6 million? Like, they're looking out for themselves while also dealing with the rest of the stuff that's happening around them. And we do have to bring in people and AI, operations, legal tech, to talk with them. But ultimately, my favorite is to bring in other coaches and to bring in other marketing experts and branding people to kind of give them a once over on the growth side of the business.
So hold on, your cadence for the groups that you're part of, because I had a conversation with a very successful lawyer today. We were talking about mastermind groups and the different, and I'm not pro, for, anti any cadence. One of the comments he made was, Tim, sometimes you get in a mastermind group, they meet 2 times a year, and what can you really do? Can you make meaningful change meeting a couple times a year? And there might be some of the best mastermind groups in the world that meet 2 times a year. That's my point.
Yeah.
It sounds like your cadence is a little different than that. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, literally everyone in my Rainmaker roundtable, when we had our end of the year, our last meeting of the year, had their best year. They were finishing up the year, they achieving their goals, the best year they've ever had. We start establishing goals for 2025. Now it's the end of the quarter. We're starting to talk about, hey, how did you do to the quarter? So it's a lot of accountability, a lot of sharing of what our goals are and how we're going to accomplish them. And, there's a little bit of peer pressure that you don't want to say, hey, I totally blew it this quarter. But if you did, admit it. And what are you going to do to fix it in Q2? Right. So there's that. You asked a question earlier too about what are the main topics that come up in the group. And while it does tend to be all over the board, because our focus is growth, it's usually about, how do I stay active on the business development front when the world is coming down upon me? And a lot of talk about automation, a lot of talk about delegation, a lot of talk. One of the biggest ones is, you'll love this, lawyers that say, I'm the lawyer, I'm the rainmaker, I'm the one everyone knows, I'm the name on the door. Every client wants me. How am I supposed to stop doing all this work when they want me? And so we really work out, how are you bringing in a number two? How are you bringing in a team approach? What can you do to get, your name to bring in the business, but then to not have to do all the business? Because, Michael Jordan shouldn't be, sitting on the bench. Michael Jordan needs to be out playing the game, and that game is business development.
It's funny. Again, I'm learning exponentially right now. This is a relatively, not totally, but relatively new field for me. And, but I love, this is my fourth industry. It's startup, and I love this stuff. And so I had heard for the first time the concept of a pod, what a pod is. Have you heard
Mm-hmm.
that?
Is it like a LinkedIn pod or a different kind of pod?
No, a pod. So a speaker was talking about his business development strategy, and he was talking about breaking down the pods and how the pods work. Okay. And so I was talking with, again, another super successful lawyer, and I said, explain to me how a pod works and who's in the pod. And he explained it to me about a pod ecosystem versus an assembly line ecosystem, and how most function with assembly line versus pod. Do you get what I'm talking about?
Okay, now I do. Yeah. So it's like different parts of the firm operationally, how they're breaking it down into
how they're connected with each other. Yeah.
I'll tell you, the funny thing is, my spin on it is I'm in help others set up what are called LinkedIn pods. And so it's a very different thing, but I'll just share really briefly what it is. So when I post something on LinkedIn, it's going to get a certain amount of attention, right? Because I've got a big audience and all that. But on Fridays, it's me and a bunch of other legal professionals that have large audiences ourselves. And every Friday we get together, we post our posts, we send them out to the pod, and everybody comments and shares what the other people post. And so what happens is then we get exponential attention and growth on our posts for that week. So it's a very different use of the word pod, but that's another way to put it together.
So I hope my marketing director is listening to that. I just made a note. I don't make a lot of notes in the LinkedIn pods. That's really cool. We're definitely going to have to look at that. And then I want to make a confession to you today. And I'm curious to see how you would react to this. So I'm 57, have been through, this is my fourth startup, done okay in my life. I've never had a business coach, and I've never been part of a group. Mm-hmm. And I have looked at it a million times. I have met with business coaches. I've thought about joining a group, and I've got this weird thing, like, I don't know if I can keep up with these people, or I don't know if I'm going to stick with the cadence and be held accountable. And I think I'm the majority of people that forget about the success, just that attitude of, it's like a big commitment. And I was blown away by how many really smart PI lawyers in this particular group are like, well, why would I want to reinvent the wheel? I'm perfectly comfortable. Like, that almost feels like an attorney thing, right?
I don't know that it's an attorney thing. I mean, it's maybe why people buy franchises, right? They're looking for a set, proven process that's repeatable, and coaching and training and in mastermind groups and other lawyers that are willing to share their secret sauce. I kind of feel like that's something anyone in any business would want. I mean, I talk to coaches all the time that want to get into coaching, and I say, well, what's your process? What's your methodology? Well, I'm just going to meet with people and ask them how this went or that went, and I'm going to coach them. That's what coaching is. And I'm like, all right, good luck with that. Like, it's not a system, and people really enjoy, appreciate, and can get more value from systems, and especially proven ones, than things that are happening sort of off the cuff. So I think there's the majority of lawyers are still winging it, whether it's business development, marketing, growing a law practice. It's 8 out of 10 that are still doing the hard and heavy lifting of figuring it out on their own. Well, I'm a smart person and I can figure that piece of it out. I figured this out. And they're just taking 10 times more effort and time and energy than if they just paid the money, put in the time, and did it. You're a different type of beast, though. Like, I think coaching might be good for you, but ultimately you've mentioned to me early in a previous conversation that you've had mentors before. And also you're uber successful. Like, if you were struggling to get your first startup going, and you were in it a year and it was failing and you just weren't hitting the numbers and you weren't getting where you want to go, and you're reluctant to hire someone that knows how to do it, that's on you, man. Like, but you're not there, Tim. You're way up here.
But I will say, and I want to make sure this is about you, and I'm grateful. I have a couple more questions before we wind down. I was fortunate enough to find a mentor, and I will go to individual people and say, hey, but I will say I was a little envious meeting all these smart people. I'm like, hey, I want to do that. And now the twist is in the line of work that I'm in, technology and marketing and such, many of the leaders in that space compete. Right. Yep. And so one of the things I discovered is a good group will have parameters, right, around you're not in the same market. Is that kind of how your group functions? You don't smash people together in the same place? And how do you choose or exclude members? And
I mean, it's less and less now than ever, because I think people are just feeling that they have to put their competitive territorial nature aside for the better of the group and for the betterment of themselves. But look, if I take 3 PI attorneys from Chicago, put them in that are all competitive, not friends, and put them in the same group, I think that probably would rub them wrong. So I really do try to find, and the beauty is I'm national in scope. So the likelihood that, I used to be all Chicago. Now it's probably only 20% of my time is spent in Chicago with lawyers. It's everywhere else. So the PI attorneys I'm meeting are all over the country. And so they're thrilled to be in a group with other PI attorneys or anyone in the plaintiff side, because they feel like they have special information that maybe the big corporate attorney may not have the same. But it's interesting. Like, I've thought about starting a plaintiff side or PI group alone. And I brought that to some of the people. They're like, no, I actually like the angles and the ideas and the fact that I'm dealing with an employment lawyer and dealing with an M&A lawyer and all the different things. It's interesting to hear not just the plaintiff side of you. So it's pulled me in a couple different directions, but ultimately I stayed the course and said, I'll just smash them all together. They love it.
That's great. And I think it's funny because you and I are having this conversation, whether it's an employment lawyer or an immigration lawyer or a PI lawyer, they all have to do the same 3 things. No one's ever going to get me off my spot on that.
There we go. Yeah.
They all got to find, serve, and keep more clients profitably. And I think that universally connects them all. It connects us all, right? All for-profit businesses. And I think that's really cool. I want to get one more take before we wind down, because I had read something the other day, and if this isn't your neck of the woods, fine. But mid-law, one of the main concerns of mid-law was succession planning for sustainable growth and succession planning. Do you guys get much into that? Like, hey, listen, at some point. So I was sitting at this table. Let me give you the context. That'll help you.
Sure.
And they were talking about strategic planning, and I just happened to end up at this table. And then they had it was called a power table. So somebody came over and said, okay, we're going to talk about strategic planning and then also succession planning. And this gal was trying to coach us through it. And I said, well, my business is a little different, because typically technology starts with, okay, who am I going to sell this to someday? And what does that person want from me? So if you behave like your business is for sale, then you'll act like it is, and you'll make sure you clean up all the things that need to be cleaned up. And then the lawyers, one lawyer said, well, it's actually a pretty good take, Tim, and lawyers don't typically do that, meaning get it cleaned up for succession. Do you guys talk much about that in the group, and what's that like?
I would say we don't talk a lot about it. It does come up, and I do feel like lawyers are notoriously bad at preparing for their exit. And also they're staying in it much longer than they used to. I mean, my father retired at 65 to the day. he handed over a great book of business to a couple of knuckleheads who ran into the ground in about 6 months. So he didn't understand the business side of it. He didn't understand how much value he had in his relationships, and the transferal of that trust wasn't done properly. And he didn't really vet the guys that he was so, and I'm not saying that's happening today, but at that level, but I think most lawyers are pretty clueless about the succession, whether they're at a firm and how long can they work, or when are they going to get kicked out and what happens, or if they own their own firm to bring in, business brokers or people to help sell it. And I'm friends with a number of business brokers in legal for that very purpose, that when people come to me and they need information about that piece of it, that's not my jam. But that one of the beautiful things about having a great podcast, and you'll get this too, is you meet so many different people in so many different areas of what can help an industry and what can help lawyers, that I always want to be that first call. And when I am, I usually have a name that's ironclad that I can give to somebody that answers the question or helps them through that transition, versus it, and I don't have to feel like I have to do everything. Like I really want to stay in my lane whenever I can.
That's great. And food for thought, because there was a lot of data. So it was part of we have a legal intelligence team, and they feed us all this information, articles and stuff, and they distill it for us, the executive team. And that was a big topic. And then they had a lot of data in the article about the actual loss of revenue or equity valuation when a rainmaker retires. And so that would seem to me, again, I'm an exit guy, right? So I'm thinking I begin with the end in mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing to think about how to get into something. It's another thing to start by saying, how do I get out of this?
Yeah. I mean, in full disclosure, Tim, most of the lawyers that I'm working with that are rainmakers are in their 30s to their 50s. So I think there's still so much time. It isn't that they shouldn't think about it. They should. And they need to bring in experts to help them with that transition and start thinking seriously about it. But, in a group like mine, where we're growth focused, that's going to be lower down on the totem.
Got it. And isn't there, last thing, I will probably, if I hung out with you, I would have 46 last things, because it was, I just was learning today, again, speaking with another attorney. I probably should have known this before, but you got to be a lawyer to own a law firm. And
yes and no.
Most states.
In most states.
Arizona's got the alternative business. Are you seeing a trend at all in legislation around opening that up? So, because what would happen with my instincts is that private equity would find a way to start aggregating these law firms. Is that happening at all, or is there an eye on that yet?
There's an eye on it. It's a slow moving train, but I just posted on LinkedIn, KPMG just got into the legal business in Arizona. And so as soon as the big four start moving in, I don't see a reason why all these companies that are flush with money and private equity wouldn't start, gobbling up in states. And there's ways around working in states and expanding out into other states, as long as you're owned in a particular state. Maybe it's a federally set up, like some law, some areas of legal are national in scope, some are state run or where they're regulated. So, but I don't think lawyers are too worried about it right now, but I think they need to keep it on their radar, because between AI and the future of legal and non-lawyer, I mean, think about this. I'm an expert at business development in law, and I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of lawyers at this point. I start a firm with a lawyer in Arizona, and we train up all their people to do rainmaking. The other firms are gonna wilt under us. And same thing with marketing agencies. There are marketing agencies that do lead generation for lawyers, right, for their clients. Well, why is that? Why don't they just run the firms and get all the leads for themselves? They know how Google works. So it should be a little bit concerning to lawyers of what's changing and how it's going to change moving forward. Deregulation is happening all around us, especially right now.
I can see that as someone who's been around technology and private equity. Every market eventually gets normalized, right?
Yeah. Well, they can sniff.
What normalized means, but
you can sniff out where the money is. I mean, there's a lot of money in law. There's a lot of money in that business, and the law firms have been very profitable and happy. And they're not even looking left or right at what's coming, but they should.
Yeah. All right. So as we want, first of all, dude, you're amazing.
Hey, thank you, Tim. I feel the same. This was, this is absolute pleasure. And I'm just so thrilled that we got to meet. We can thank Katie.
We will thank Katie.
Yeah.
And Katie's going to work on our LinkedIn pods. So
There we
I get
go.
my takeaway. So grateful for that. Hopefully other lawyers will do the same. So what do you want people to know as we wind down? What's the takeaway from this? Where can they find you? Where do you want to direct them? You're amazing. Most probably already know you, but for the ones who don't, where do they get you?
Well, here's the deal. I mean, my passion and my why, if you will, right, is to help the legal industry. When I'm dead and gone, I want the legal industry to be very different than it is today because of the books I've written, the podcasts I've done, the people, the content I'm creating, in the coaching I've done has changed people's lives. That's really at the heart of it. Ultimately, if people want to, if they're very hungry for growth, they want to go to the next level, then Fretzin.com is my podcast. I mean, that's my website. Podcast is Fretzin.com/podcast. It's also on all the major channels. And again, we're coming up on episode 500. So you got a lot of episodes to go back and listen to. And I mean, 175 top rainmakers that have been on the show, and more to come, and experts like you, Tim, and others. So it's been an absolute pleasure to be a part of this industry, even though I didn't start as a lawyer. I'm going to finish as a, maybe one that isn't, it feels like a lawyer, maybe plays one on TV. One of the two.
That's right. Well, you can tell that your heart's in the right place, man. And I feel like we've connected today on a really cool level. And my instincts tell me this won't be the last time we spend time together. Yeah. So I want to thank you for joining us. Thank you for our listeners for joining us. Encourage you to like, share. We're grateful for that. And just want another shout out to Faster Outcomes. Faster Outcomes is the ultimate AI-powered legal intelligence platform for lawyers of all shapes and sizes. Once again, Steve, I appreciate you taking time today. Wish you nothing but the best, and I'll see you again soon.